So good evening. This video is about divide objects below. So this is an option that you can use to divide vector-based objects like circles, squares, or typography, or images that you image trace, that you vectorize and expand. So I'm first going to try it with the ellipse or on a circle. So I'm pulling out a circle, I'm pressing shift to create a perfect circle. The circle that I have created is a circle with a white fill and a black stroke. If I want to swap the fill and stroke, I use the swap fill and stroke arrow. Okay, so you can see I've got a nice big black circle. The path that I'm going to create is going to be made with the pencil tool to start with. Okay, so you've got this circle, right? You've got the path on the outside, and that's the path that's defining how the fill is actually being filled, like what the object looks like. So let's say I wanted to draw a nice big swoopy line. Okay, I've drawn from one side of that circle to the other side of that circle. It's on the layer that's on top of the circle. It's a path. It's a vector-based path. And a vector-based path can cut up vector-based objects. So you can see this last thing that I've created, or the most recent object that I've created, is the path, and it's on top of the black path, the black filled object that's below it. You can also see that that line, that path, has been selected. It's the only thing that's selected. And now if I go to Object, Path, Divide Objects Below, and I click that, it has divided the circle into two pieces, right? One on the top, one on the bottom. Click on a neutral spot, and what has happened here is that circle has a white outline. The path looks like it had some sort of thickness. It actually doesn't. If I shift select, so I've pressed shift with my finger, and I've selected both of these objects, or deselect, click in a neutral space, and draw a marquee around the two objects. They're both selected. If I click in a neutral space and I select one of those objects or the other of those objects, you can see what's happening in the layers panel. Click on one, click on no object, click on the other, click on no object, or draw a marquee around both, or click and press shift and click. That is the only way, or those are the three ways that you can select the objects, through the layers panel or through just clicking directly on them. If I want to knock off that white outline, I press none. So now when I deselect, you can see that that path has no thickness at all. If I select the top object, the one that's higher up on that picture plane, and I use my arrow key to move that object up, you can see these two fit completely together. It's pretty awesome. Paths have no thickness at all. So you can make all sorts of really cool looking objects or logos or vector-based illustrations with divide objects below. So now I've made that top object blue, or the one that's, the one that's higher up on the picture plane. The bottom part is now green. Interesting. So I'm going to ditch these two. I've made a marquee around them and I've deleted them. I'm now going to grab some text. So the type tool. Click and drag out your type area box. Type in some text in a box. Select it. To make it bigger, go to the drop down. Make it as big as you want or as big as you can. And this is an option as well, adding a number to the, make that here, make that text box, make it like this. So 172 points, select, click and select to make it only 60 points, etc. New typeface, use Madrone instead. So you can see text in a box. So text in a box. Supposedly this is vector, right? So if I zoom in on it, it is going to never ever show me pixels on the edges, on the curves. This is a vector-based group of objects. It is text in a box. Just open up that layers panel so you can see it. It is editable, so I can click and I can select one of the objects and recolor it, but I can't actually break it up with that path like I did the circle unless I select it, go to Type, Create Outlines, and now look what happens. Creating outlines makes all of these individual glyphs into their separate compound path. So now that these are actual paths, this is actually just drawn out vector-based objects that have no connection to the typeface anymore, even though it looks like a typeface. These are just shapes that I could try to recreate with my pen tool. So this is the same idea. I'm making that bee. Oh, good Lord, it's taking me so much time to do. It's gonna take me forever. So why not just start with the text? I mean, I guess I could try this. Okay, so I'm making a bee. I'm put the white there, and I'm gonna grab my tool. I'm gonna put another one there. I mean, it's not a, oh, that bee's not bad. We'll leave that to the side because it looks kind of interesting. Why not use the type and then fool around with the pieces of the type or the paths of the type? Still can't get over how cool that looks. We'll leave that guy to the side. So this text in a box is outlined. If I grab my pencil tool and I start to draw through all of these shapes, and you can see this is a continuous line. I'm pretending this is like the scissor path that I'm cutting through, and I'm cutting through construction paper that is shaped like a T, like an E, like an X, like a T, like an I, like an N, an A, a B, an O, an X. So this is my cut line. Let's think of divide objects below like a cut line. So these glyphs are the only paths that are on this artboard, except for my beautiful bee here. The path that I've created is on top of all of these shapes, right? These ones right here, the text in a box. Object, path, divide objects below, divided them all up. That's so cool. So what we've got here is a group. This is a group of objects. When I created outlines of that text in a box, Illustrator was very kind. It put all of those separate glyphs inside of a group. Now that I've cut them up, you can see that all of the little pieces are piling up one on top of each other in this layer hierarchy. They're path after path after path, okay? Each one of them is separate, but when they're inside of a group, we can't actually go and click on them separately with our selection tool. I can click on them separately with the direct selection tool. So you can see here I can recolor half of that T, half of this X, the other half of the X. Awesome, looking pretty good. But if I try to select with my selection tool, it selects the whole group. So the group is overshadowing the fact that there's a whole bunch of loose objects inside of it. If I go to Object Ungroup, see how the group folder seems to have disappeared? Now I can go in, I can select individual objects. I can even select and then press Shift, press Shift, press Shift, and recolor a number of them at once, or individuals one at a time. Pretty cool. So divide objects below is going to divide with a path objects that are below it. I've got to finish this, guys. I think it looks really nice. It looks like a Pedro Almodovar title sequence text. Okay, I'm just gonna finish this up. And there we are. Divide objects below. So these objects have been divided by a path. So I'm not going to get rid of these. I'm just going to move them a little further up so I have a little more room here. So divide objects below works with paths, and it divides objects with the path. So it's almost like going like this. Here is a circle. Here is a rectangle on top of it. Okay, maybe I'll reposition this. I'll reposition this guy. I'll just reposition it right here. Okay, so we've got the path that's overlapping the object below, and I've got the object below. So I've got a rectangle and a circle. I've selected only the top object. Object, path, divide objects below. So you see that that rectangle disappears. Only the path was used. So this is almost like multitasking. That path could only do one thing. I told it to hold a fill color. It said, okay, I'll be blue. I'm a rectangle on top of a circle. That's fine. I've got a blue fill. But then when I told that rectangle to divide with its path the object below, it went, okay, but I have to get rid of this other part. I can only understand that my path is being used to divide this object below me, and the object is blue, so I'm going to take on its fill color. I hope that makes sense. But that's divide objects below. In the third episode of our class, we are going to be dividing using paths to divide up an image trace. So I think the next video I am going to show you how to image trace, and then I'm going to show you how to divide objects below that were an image that was traced in Illustrator. And that is divide objects below.